All right, thank you, Lucas. First off, before we get going, Corey said a couple things. I want to say also a couple things that might be odd coming from the Doane coach, but I want to publicly thank Coach Keller for 15 years of work in the GPAC conference, and really I think the only head coach still remaining from the formation of the league. And personally, I've enjoyed great competition with Coach Keller, not only as the Doane coach, and he can attest the last 2 years the Doane Wesleyan games have been incredible. We've split them, so I don't just say that from a winning standpoint. The game 2 years ago at their place where we got beat at the end under the lights was absolutely electric and a lot of fun. While I coached at Hastings before I was at Doane, the same kind of competition, and it's always been great competition. Coach, people may not remember this, but won the first ever GPAC football title, and when he mastered the hook and ladder play, and I still remember that, and because in Hastings we were in the mix that year, and got the key first down at the end of the game to close it out. But anyway, I'm looking for the hook and ladder play this year, Coach, just so you know, and it can wait till after our game. I'd love to see it on film. Personally, Coach and I have built, I think, a very good friendship, genuine friendship. Unfortunately, over a couple tough losses we've had the last few years, we lost a player at Doane a few years ago, and Coach, unfortunately, Keller lost a player last year, and first thing I received the next day after ours was a bouquet of flowers from the Wesleyan football program, and I called Coach Keller right away and said, hey, I appreciate the gesture, and I don't know if you remember, but I said, you know, you're making this very difficult for me not to like you. So anyway, but I've learned a lot about how to coach in the GPAC, and a lot of that is from Coach Keller, so like I said, I wanted to thank you. Talk about Doane football. We're coming off of a good year. We finished last year 7-2 in the conference, 7-3 overall. Overall. Felt like we ended the season on a high note. We won 7 out of our final 8 games. We're really playing well down the stretch. Bring back a lot of players for this year's team. Now, we graduated a good senior class. We didn't graduate a lot of starting seniors, but a lot of those guys played key roles, so we do feel like we have a lot of voids to fill, and a lot of players coming in are going to have an opportunity to do that. I'll go through and talk to you about some of the returning starters. I'll try not to ramble too long, but at the quarterback position first, we bring back 2 quarterbacks who both started split time last year, and Brandon Stewart, who will be a senior this next year, Jack Shadley, who will be a sophomore. Those 2 guys are back. We have a third quarterback named Trev Lovell, who may fit into the competition as well, but we'll see how it goes. People have asked me who's going to start. I don't know. You know, spring football wasn't a whole lot different than fall, and they may both play. They're different styles of quarterbacks, so I think that puts some pressure on our opponent if they do end up both splitting time again. We'll see how it goes. Running back, our top rusher from last year, Nate Meyer, returns, and we think he's an outstanding football player, a great leader for our team, a tough player. He'll be back this next season as a junior, and outside of that, we don't have anybody who's played a lot at the running back position, so that's one area we need to build some depth. Wide receiver position, our top 3 receivers from last year are all gone. So we bring back 3 receivers who have played at the varsity level, none of which have started, but have played quite a little bit. We're going to have some receivers come in, earn some spots, at least work themselves into the rotation, and shore that unit up a little bit. Tight end, we have 2 players back in Holden Wetzler and Kellen Unvert, who both played all season last year and did some good things for us. In the offensive line, we have 4 out of our 5 starters return for us, and we were able to build some depth last year, and I think that's going to pay off for us this year. And returning Blake Bunner at left guard, Eric Todd at right guard, Zach Reeves at left tackle, and Cole Bodfield at right tackle. There's going to be some competition, even though we've got 4 returning starters. We've got a couple guys that we think are going to come in and compete for those jobs and push those guys. And like I said, I think we've got a good group of returning offensive linemen coming back. Defensively, in our defensive line, one of our strengths last year was I think we built enough depth that we could rotate and roll through. We had about 8 different defensive linemen that played regularly in a 3-man front, so we were able to, late in games, have fresh bodies out there and survive some nicks and some injuries throughout the season. We graduated 3 of those 8, so you start 3 and we feel like we have 5 that we like. We'd still like to build a little bit of depth there so that we can rotate aggressively. But returning starters, guys who have started regularly or off and on, Aaron Hanlon, defensive end, DJ Baumsberger, Franklin Crawford, a couple of defensive ends also who will be back and we're expecting big things out of those guys. Linebackers, we run a 3-5 defense, and 4 out of our 5 starting linebackers from last season will return. We're going to be seniors. I think 4 out of this year's projected 5 starting linebackers will be seniors. So it'll be an experienced group. Garrett Borcher is our lone all-conference, first-team all-conference returner, and Andy Tatum and Alex Thatch, our 2 outside linebackers, will be seniors this next year. We think that'll be a good unit. Not a lot of depth in our linebacker squad, so there again we need to build some of that early, and hopefully some of our incoming players will be able to fill some of those spots. Defensive secondary could be a strength for us. We have all 3 starters back in corners, Ben Muff, who moved over to corner halfway through the season, and Tanner Thomas at the other corner. Both will be seniors this year. And then Cole Wiseman, who started halfway through the season when we moved Ben from free safety to corner. Cole stepped in at free safety and had a really nice season as a true freshman, so he'll be a sophomore. So those 3 return, and like I said, we feel pretty good with that experience back. Special teams, Jordan Peterson will be back as our kicker and punter, and we're hoping that he'll continue to do good things there. As the season progressed last year, he got stronger. He'll be a senior this next year, and like I said, we're hoping that he'll hold on and fulfill both duties for us, and we think he's good. He's had a good summer and went to a couple camps. Hopefully it'll be a good senior season for Jordan. Recruiting class was good. We got a healthy number of players coming in. We feel like there's a lot of talent in the group. As any coach will tell you, you have no clue with an incoming freshman if he's going to be able to play for you or not. And sometimes the guys you think are going to contribute early aren't quite ready for college football, and some of the guys that you didn't recruit or maybe sent one flyer to, and all of a sudden they're coming to school, end up coming out of the weeds and playing for you. So some of the guys are going to have to play, and we'll see who those players are. Our staff, one of the strengths I think that we've got going for us is we've had a pretty good amount of stability in the 8 going on 9 years that I've been at Doane. Chris Bessler, our defensive coordinator, he'll be back this season. It'll be his 9th year. He came on when I did. Josh Littrell, our offensive coordinator, he's been with us now going on 3 years. It'll be his 2nd year as the offensive coordinator, coaches our quarterbacks, and I think that unit is going to be a lot better going into the season because we know our identity. It might be a 2-man identity, but we have a good idea going in this year, where last year we really didn't. So we're optimistic. I can tell you, quite frankly, I'm not quite as optimistic as I was an hour ago before the first 5 coaches talked, because everybody sounds like they're going to be pretty good. And I think a lot of our success is going to depend on what happens with a lot of these teams. I said a year or 2 ago that if everybody comes out gangbusters, we might all be 5-5, but I think we've done what we need to do to this point, and I think our guys are ready to go, and we're excited to get started. We'll play at McPherson College in the first game and the opener of the KCAC GPAC Challenge. Are there any questions?
How do you build off last year's success and have more success this year?
Well, I think that last year it was an identity thing. I really do. The beginning of the season, going into the year, we had a returning starter at quarterback, and then we lost him for the season in our 2nd game. And at that point, then we moved in Brandon Stewart, who hadn't played any varsity football, even though he was a junior, and then Jack Shadley, who was a freshman, who was a couple months removed from senior prom, and went into the meat of the conference schedule with those 2 guys and trying to decide, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to attack this? Which quarterback is it going to be? And once we started to figure those things out, that's where we had a lot of success down the stretch. So going into this season, I hope, a lot of it will depend on staying healthy, as these coaches will tell you, but I hope that we have a better grasp of our identity going in, especially on offense, and then we keep on doing what we know how to do. I think our guys know what it takes to be successful. They put in a good work in the off season, and again, when camp starts, we pick up on day 1 and do what we do and do it as well as we can and get ready for McPherson, and then take them one day at a time.
What are your thoughts on competing in the GPAC this season?
Well, again, listening to these coaches, everybody's optimistic, and so many variables that are out of your control. But I know it's a great bunch of coaches, schools that support athletics and support football, and there isn't anybody you can go in any week and just show up like Coach Harper said. I mean, every week it's a big deal. It's a big game, and when you go on the road in our conference, I'm ecstatic every time we've won a road game, no matter who we played, because going on the road and getting out of your zone, if you can just go in and just eke out a win, to me is a big deal in our league, again, no matter who you're playing. So it's a competitive conference. It's a lot of fun. I think it's great competition. I think our teams play the right way, and it's a good place to be.
You use two quarterbacks kind of interchangeably after the first couple of games. Do you see that happening again, and is that fruitful?
You know, if I had to guess here today, I would guess that we would probably do that again. I would be thrilled if we went into camp and one of those two quarterbacks showed up and was lights out and just took that option off the table. And there wasn't a huge difference from fall through spring in the separation of our two quarterbacks. They both improved through spring football, don't get me wrong, but we didn't see a lot of separation. So again, we'll go in and we'll see how it goes. They're different styles. Or one quarterback, Jack Shadley, is more of a runner, still throws the ball well, but he can make some big plays with his feet. Brandon Stewart is a guy who throws the ball really well and a strong arm quarterback who coaches probably don't worry as much about him taking off on a draw or on a quarterback keep. And I think both guys put a different pressure on the defense. So if we do go with a two-man scheme, I think that can work to our advantage if we do it the right way.
How many things do you try to change just because of personnel differences each year?
You know, we'll adjust some things again with personnel. It probably at the receiver position, if you have a player that can run by anybody in the conference, the vertical game is going to be a part of what you do no matter what style of offense you run. It needs to be. If you don't have that, then obviously you have to do some things a little bit differently. But outside of that, our running game won't change. Last year going into the season, we had 3 running backs who all had a lot of experience. They were all going to play. This year we have 1. We have another player coming in, who Drew Klein from Papillion South, who ran for 2,500 yards in high school 2 years ago or something like that. And he can play. He was injured all last season, so we know he can play. We'll see if he can contribute. We've got some good freshman running backs coming in. And so like I said, we don't plan to do anything differently, but you get a week into camp and you find out something that maybe you didn't know, and all of a sudden you build something into your offensive or defensive package based on personnel.
Been a while since the last playoff trip, and yet 3 of the last 4 years you guys have just been an eyelash away. What does that do for morale coming in? I'm sure it's got to be a boost, especially, I mean, you weren't in the playoffs, but the way you ended the season last year, has to be something magical.
Yeah, you know, there was a time where we probably would have talked about that at the beginning of the year. Hey, look what we have coming back. Look how close we've been to the playoffs. I guess I've maybe changed a little bit in my coaching philosophy where we're not going to talk about playoffs until we get really into the playoffs. You know, you take them one at a time, and I think if you look ahead, that's happened to us in the past a little bit. In 2011, when we went over to Hastings and couldn't get it done, and I think we were looking ahead at that point. We were starting to think about playoffs, and we were very proud of ourselves at that point, and got beat, and that our playoff hopes were dashed in an instant. We're going to take them one at a time. It's coach talk. It's cliche. Do we have a playoff team? Potentially. We've got to stay healthy. A couple guys that I think we would struggle without, and so that's a big part of it. But again, so much depends on the other coaches and what they're going to bring to the table and the other teams. So we have been there 3 out of 4 years. We've been right on the doorstep. I realize that. I think our players know that, but I don't know what you can do other than come back and do it again, and let's see if we can take that one more step and get through the door, and then we'll see what that all tastes like.